Bienvenidos a una nueva edición de Mundo Empresarial. Derrick De Kerckhove es profesor de la Universidad de Toronto. Con él conversaremos tras la pausa sobre la importancia de las tecnologías de información. No se muevan. Bien, ahora nos vamos al mundo de la tecnología. Vamos a tener una entrevista con un profesor de la Universidad de Toronto, el doctor Derrick De Kerckhove. Con él vamos a hablar sobre las nuevas tecnologías de información. Esta es una entrevista que va a ser en inglés y estará subtitulada o apoyada con una traducción. Derrick, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Me too. I'm happy to having you here. Give me some summary around the new technologies on information. How can we apply the best technology in our life, considering all the exposure to technology that we have?
Well, I wish I could answer that question straight. I can't, because the problem is the technologies are handling us much more than we are handling them. The moment they're available, the younger set, the younger generation, pick up on them very quickly, and it transforms their life. It transforms the way they think, they feel, the way they relate to people. How much time do you spend in front of a screen a day?
Almost all the day.
Well, of course you do. And the average North American, I guess South American too, spends between 6 and 7 hours a day in front of one screen. Now, it could be this one.
Yes.
It could be, let me see, if you got
the iPad, or
could be this one.
The iPhone.
So what happens is that you are exchanging your cognitive processing with all these screens. Your thinking is happening outside your head. That changes a lot of things. The other thing which is very important about this use broadcast medium, now it's become a narrowcast medium. Right? Now people can actually use YouTube to broadcast whatever they want.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
that's it. Do you realize this is the most expensive instrument of communication in the world, in any time, and any your children can have them.
Absolutely.
And put on TV and have...
Yeah, eventually they
don't
can
even
have
to go to a
their own
station.
TV, TV channel, right?
That's a big change. That's a big change. And a bigger change is the political dimension that come out of things like Twitter or blogs or so on. Before, you simply had to take the mass media. Now, you do the media. You make the journalist discovery. There's an awful lot of things that are changing right now because of that thing. And if you want a whole story, it's basically electricity. It's not electronics, it's not digital, it's not software. No. It's fundamentally electricity. It begins with the telegraph.
Yes.
The first time the electricity meets language, that's maximum speed meeting maximum complexity. That's where we have all this stuff coming out.
Now everybody has, in some way, a connection electronically, correct? And this makes a situation that never before we have faced in terms of being connected all the time.
Yeah.
So here there is a kind of mailingitis, all the time looking at the mail.
Sure.
Right?
We are Pinocchio 2.0.
Yes.
Just attached to our little... Yeah.
Do you consider this will stop in some way, or will change the way we'll read our meals or something like that?
No, eating our meals will probably continue, although our meals are going to become more and more like airplane meals. But anyway, that's not here, not in Peru, because we eat very well here. That'll last. No, what is happening is the connection is already there. The interconnection is there. There will be more of it. What is really occurring is the need for us to globalize, literally, to be each one of us being globalized by our cell phone. This globalization is the real extent of the interconnection that we have with everybody and everything. It's not necessarily comfortable, but we're getting used to it, and we're getting used to reorganize the world and the economy according to the new rules of this interconnection. So the old systems don't work very well, banks, for example, governments, they don't work very well at all. We're going to be changing that. I'm not saying it's going to be a revolution, I'm pacifist, but the media are creating a revolution, and that is a revolution in politics, it's a revolution in economy, it's a revolution in culture, it's a revolution in psychology, it's a revolution in education. Wherever you look, you're going to find that more and more the penetration of these new tools and these new technologies are actually changing the ground rules everywhere.
In your opinion, which will be the role of the agency? Because without connections, it was easier to have businesses based on agency, right? I have information, I have products, and I will offer. What about that?
Good question. No, agencies are going to continue. Of course they are. A journalist is needed. After all, citizen journalism is very nice, but you still need somebody to verify the stuff, to make it, to put it in some kind of order, to make it, to give it better significance. If it's wrong, throw it away. If it's right, where is it coming from? What is it saying? Example, a revolution in Tunisia. You know, people have been following this sort of thing. That's the kind of stuff that a journalist does. Agencies to organize business are going to be necessary as ever. But it's also true that many smaller companies coming out straight from nowhere in the internet are suddenly going to become their own agencies. Of course they will.
Yeah.
But you have to remember...
Let's put an example in travel agencies.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm really sorry for that. I had an excellent travel agent, but now I do it myself.
Yeah, but it's not sustainable over time.
No, agreed. There are some, of course, that are losing ground completely, and people are worried about the future of paper itself. You know, are going to be all these iPads. Are we going to need some?
Some newspapers has announced that maybe they are going to kill their paper-based version
because it's becoming too expensive. That's the other thing is, as a new medium comes in, it comes in because it's cheaper than the previous one. So what happens is it turns the previous one in an art form. So we will have newspapers, and it'll be really, really beautiful. You know, they'll be superbly done. They will contain the. You know what happened to Life magazine a long time ago? It was killed by the new medium, by the new photography, by the new little magazine that came around. Oh, sure. There is this constant battle between the media. But it's true. There should be a list of agencies that are being obsolesced by the new capacity of the individual to take care of his own business. But there is also a very important continuation of some ground rules in some very large things. The networks continue to be pertinent.
Which do you think are the most important trends based on new technologies? The first one maybe is the convergence of a lot of channels in one single device.
No, but this is convergence. This is pure convergence.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a small thing, and it contains all the history of human language, human speaking, human writing, human sending, human receiving. I mean, it's all there. Filming, photographing, you have it all there, which is quite, that's convergence. Convergence is only one, and rather predictable, driver of electricity. One big one is transparency. Transparency started a long time before WikiLeaks, but the need for transparency was expressed by WikiLeaks and all that things that surrounded that extraordinary thing. Twitter is transparency.
Yeah.
Twitter is, I call Twitter the most mature moment of the history of the internet since the telegraph. Twitter is when you can actually position yourself in real time. It's the alarm system of both an individual and a community. And an alarm system that requires instant attention. And what Twitter does, it makes what used to be public opinion used to be local. Now Twitter makes public opinion global. So what's happening in Lima somewhere, that's really significant, and people really, there's no way of understanding exactly what's happening. People start twittering. It's not just Lima people or other Peru people that are going to look at it. It's the whole world. If it's worth looking at, if there's something really serious, that's what happened with the Arab Spring. When the whole world started looking at what was happening in these various countries, and young people who deserved a much better fate were actually complaining about the bad fate they had. And whether it was Puerta del Sol and Piazza Catalunya, Même Combat, it was that kind of tool that allowed people to organize themselves and actually expand the news well beyond the limits of their own surroundings.
Derrick, please let me do a little break, and we will return after the commercial break. Volvemos tras la pausa con el profesor Derrick De Kerckhove de la Universidad de Toronto. No se muevan. Bien, estamos de vuelta con el profesor Derrick De Kerckhove hablando sobre nuevas tecnologías. Which are the most important challenges that countries like Peru have to face?
Well, Peru seems to be doing all right now, but it's going to face the usual one. The big challenge that all the countries are going to face is the issue of privacy. How much do we have? I think constitutionally they should deal with that very strongly. Too much. There's something in the legal system now that is being discussed in Europe, and I think probably in Peru as well. It's the right to forget. No. It's quite serious. I don't mean, it sounds funny, but it's quite serious. It's the idea that whatever you have said, published, photographed, does not belong to Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Doesn't belong to Facebook. It's really irritating to think how much of our stuff is belonging. And beyond that, when you ask a question on Google and I ask the same question at the same time, same word for the same thing, I don't get the same answer as you. You know why? Because you're profiled. Your questions are profiled in a certain way. My questions are profiled in another way. I get a different answer. Now that's very serious. There's nothing wrong with the idea, because fundamentally Google is trying to give you a better service, give you a better answer to the question, more corresponding to your needs. My question will be answered differently. That's profiling, which is a very, very good idea. The only problem is that kind of profiling is happening in all kinds of business, all kinds of government organization, all kinds of information systems that make you surrounded by a huge digital unconscious that you have no control over.
Do you think China will manage this?
China has already done its best. I mean, it forbids
What will
YouTube.
happen with China? Which will be the most predictable scenario there?
They will buy most of your coastline. Because they need, their coastline is crowded. They need to have Club Meds for Chinese people all around the world. They will buy all the coastlines because they love the sea. They'll buy the coastline to bury themselves because Chinese need to place themselves in front of the sea when they die. But more than anything else, have fun. I think about this because Naples is a big mess. I live in Naples in Italy. It really is a mess. The city is very clean here. I'm like very proud to walk in Lima.
We are the cleanest place.
No, absolutely. No, but you are doing fine anyway. But Naples is awful. And so, and that whole beautiful area under the Vesuvius is also completely ruined by neglect. Completely. The Chinese are already buying it and just going to raise it all and replace it with Chinese temples and other things to have a good time on the sea. Because that is one of the most beautiful things. So the Chinese are buying the world. They really are. I understand that there is some problem with the, they're buying too much and may not have all the reserves that we think they have. There could be a crash in China too, but I'm not sure. But they are buying the world and they are going to spread around. And I think because they are very intelligent, they won't be brutal.
On the other hand, another type of question regarding the nature of the businesses over the internet. There are huge, important spaces, but not too many players in every niche. I mean, there is one huge social media player, Facebook. One huge.
Well, it used to be Orkut.
Yeah, well, but it's you cannot compare the sizes, right? One search engine that is too big to compete with, like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and behind them there are millions of users.
Yeah.
What's happening with this business structure that cannot receive more players in a more competitive way? Why we are creating very giants in this internet world? What's happening?
I think
there?
the ground behind that, the reason why that's happening is because all of it is based on standards. I mean, standards, not human moral standards. They're based on technical standards. You actually have to be able, I mean, the whole question of...
But technology can be copied in the good way. I mean, technology can be replied. Why there is no room for a second good player or third good player and create a more competitive environment?
In some cases there are. We've seen a dramatic history of the relationship between Microsoft and Apple, for example. That's a typical
but
case.
now there
Linux or Android are cases of people trying to present an alternative.
Okay, I'll give you that. But there are two. But there are two. Not so many compared with real estate operators, right?
That's an American model. There's only two in America, too. Conservatives and
but technology comes from every part of the world. I mean, it's not only from the U.S.
But within those standards, which are common to everybody, young people from all over the world invent things in Japan. I have brilliant invention that I want to show this evening. There is inventions coming from Finland. It's all the capacity for these people, young people inventing YouTube, young people inventing Google. They get it. And they know how to navigate in that. But if there was not a ground language they were working on, whatever program they use, it would be chaos. And you would not have, you wouldn't be able to have this quality of software and novelty of software if you didn't have something that was common to all of it.
Do we have to be alert in the next years for a second or third revolution around technology?
I think it's a continuous one. It's a running fire. From Twitter to cloud computing. Cloud computing is the next buzzword. Doesn't mean it wasn't around for a while. It's been around for a long time. But people are thinking, yes, let's put all the software out there in the clouds so that you can have a tiny little machine, get everything you want, all the services, including pay systems and all that. Yeah, it'll probably be something that's going to happen. What cloud computing is, by comparison to Twitter, is a convergence. Twitter is expansion. Twitter is like the redistribution of signal, but cloud computing is the recontrol.
Receiving, yeah.
Yeah, and there will be trouble with
a mega receiver of information.
And there will be a lot of trouble with cloud computing because government haven't got a clue. Very few people. You have to have very good constitutional lawyers to understand the consequences for society of accepting some of these big innovations. Cloud computing is not without problems, including privacy, including intellectual property, including, in fact, control, and including one of the worst may be that they will become like the Russians and the Soviets. You didn't have to make any effort at all because you were all a monopoly. And once cloud computing becomes a big monopoly, why would they bother adjusting and adapting and improving their system? You have to do that in a certain way. There you will need to have true competition. Not just one cloud serving everybody.
The law structure will survive. I mean, you have to redefine the principles of law.
Yes, you do.
And geography and everything.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
How you can manage this
Well,
situation?
in the South American thing, I see Mercosur as something which is the right it's the right direction. Europe is the right direction. What we're looking at now, in terms of the geographical or geopolitics of the world, we're looking at continentalism. And continentalism has been in place for some time, and it works more or less. Mercosur works more or less. Europe works more or less, actually rather well, until things go wrong with Greece and and Portugal and other places.
Yeah.
But by and large, it's the right way to go. Why? Because continent represent the new space, as opposed to the national space. The continental space represents the new operating space for business, for
Won't
government.
be a global space finally?
Yeah, but that's the point. Continentalism is the step before global space.
Okay.
And we need the global space very much. We need it all the more that space is actually threatening right now. A lot of things that are happening are not good news at all, climate change and whatnot. We will be equipped to deal with that when we will have passed the continental stage. Meanwhile, the continental stage has to mature. And I think that's one of the things that is very good about South America. It's actually working at.
How do you see the future in terms of computing power?
Oh, forget analog computer. It's finished already. Digital, we are almost gone through the digital era. The next era is the quantum era. Quantum is a lot more flexible, a lot more powerful, a lot more complex. It deals with many different kinds of parameters. It's infinitely faster than the digital system. The thing is, we haven't learned how to control it yet. But I think quantum computing is on its way. Quantum cryptography, using, creating secret languages and so on, that's already happening. So I see a quantum era as the one picking up from the electronic. And the question about the quantum is it still tied to the electricity? That's a big question. Is it still tied to electricity? Is the quantum era still ready for an internet? Ready for an internet. A big issue about the internet, I forget to say, and I want to say it publicly, the big issue about internet is to keep it neutral, to keep it as a public cyberspace. We need one. We need one. Right. We need one standard system so that we can actually all operate within it, and we need a sense of freedom to operate within a public space, a public square. That's what the internet should be. And not give everything to Mr. Zuckerberg.
Well, Derrick, thank you very much for staying with us tonight.
It was a pleasure.
How was your stay in Peru?
You know what? I can tell you it was wonderful. It's only been 3 days.
Was it better than Naples?
Yes. But don't go and say that to them. They will be very offended. The food here?
Amazing. Wow. Well, but Italy also has a very good food.
No comparison. It's much more inventive here.
Yes.
It's great. It's really good.
It's because of the need to invent.
I know. Try it. Do that in the electronics and you'll see the economy will shoot up.
Absolutely.
And what's more, Mr. President, you should install free Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah.
And your kids will be...
one of our most important challenges. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for staying with us.
All right, thank you.
El profesor Derrick De Kerckhove de la Universidad de Toronto estuvo con nosotros conversando sobre nuevas tecnologías, el futuro, qué es lo que se viene, la importancia de tenerlas y de conocerlas y los grandes retos que tendremos que afrontar. No se vayan, regresamos.